Welcome back to Soul Shift, the podcast where real life, science, and soul all get a seat at the table. I'm your host today, Mindy Gorman-Plutzer. If you're new to Soul Shift, this is a space for people, especially women in midlife, who are navigating big shifts in their bodies, their relationships, their work, and their sense of self. We talk about the moments that change us, the nervous system behind it all, and how to come home to yourself in the messy middle of it. Today, I have a truly special guest with me, someone whose work bridges profound spiritual depth with everyday life, whose art transforms nature into healing energy, and whose presence invites us into deep awareness and authentic transformation. Atousa Raissyan is an awareness-centered, transformational spiritual authority, speaker, and award-winning author, guiding individuals into deep emotional healing, trauma release, and conscious transformation. With over 2 decades of experience, she helps people move beyond fear-based patterns and reconnect with lived presence and authentic self-knowing. She's been featured in USA Today, the NYC Journal, Potomac Lifestyle, and Entrepreneur Herald. Atousa is known for honest, grounded conversations that bridge the mystical with the practical. She lovingly calls herself a life alchemist because her work transforms suffering into wisdom, fear into freedom, and pain into peace. She's also a visionary digital artist whose work is displayed across the U.S., including a permanent exhibit at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. Her art, like her healing work, is layered with intention, energy, and spiritual symbolism. She's based in Potomac, Maryland, but she serves clients worldwide. Atousa creates spaces where awareness becomes lived experience, inviting greater freedom, joy, and self-love. She weaves together modern tools, ancient wisdom, holding sacred space for remembrance, reclamation, and rebirth. And with all of that, she is a perfect guest for me to welcome to Soul Shift.
Welcome to Soul Shift, where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life come alive.
Soul Shift is your weekly dose of inspiration and a reminder that meaningful change can be both gentle and powerful.
Together, we'll unlock practical tools, share conversations that spark something beautiful, and celebrate every facet of your incredible human experience.
Your energy matters, your growth matters, and you matter. Let's shift boldly,
joyfully,
together.
Welcome, Atousa. I am so honored to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Wonderful. So let's dig in. In preparing for our conversation, I wanted to better understand the meaning of alchemy. So this is what I found. An inner transformative process using the metaphor of turning base metals into gold to represent the purification of the soul and achieving self-knowledge, enlightenment, and spiritual transcendence, moving from ignorance and base emotions, so metaphorically that would be lead, to wisdom, love, and higher consciousness, metaphorically gold. So I am so inspired to get this conversation going. You call yourself a life alchemist, someone who transforms suffering into wisdom, fear into freedom, and pain into peace. And that is a powerful description because it's a powerful transformation. So can you take us into your own journey, into the moments in your life that required this kind of transformation?
I can actually, and that was one of the reasons I love the description that you put out for everybody beforehand as well, because part of my own journey, a big part of it was to be able to release those parts of myself, those layers, and find that truth, find that space of consciousness where you beautifully called gold, which is light, which is the light in all of us that is always there, is always shining, that space of peace. But in order to get there, in order to be able to stand there, sit there, or just be that, you got to be willing to sit and feel those shadow parts, those darker parts, those layers that it's hard to hold, it's hard to see, it's hard to even acknowledge and accept. You got to be willing to hold it. You got to be willing to feel it. And in holding it and feeling it, it allows you to start loving yourself. So for me, I've had a lot of those moments in my life that got me here. And the biggest one I would say was when I actually started this, I want to call it career, but it's not a career. It's my life. It's what I love to do. I always tell people, even if I wasn't getting paid, I would still be doing what I do. And it was when I went from my engineering career, now that was a career, to doing this work. And I talk about it a lot in my book, Change Yourself, Change the World, is where I stopped doing that work and I shifted to this work, which call it my calling, my gift, whatever titles, labels you want to give it, but this is what I was meant to be doing. And that was the biggest transformation and shift for me. I had started letting go of those layers or top layers anyway at that point, but it was like a deep dive. No, we need to just go dig everything out now and, find that space.
Was there a particular experience that ultimately helped you discover that this was your calling, that this was your calling for your own personal transformation, and then ultimately to help others?
I think the biggest moment was I already had started this work. So the way I started this work, I was doing this type of work for friends and family anyway. At that point, I wasn't working and somebody said, hey, you've been doing this. Why don't you just start doing this for other people? I'm like, okay, what do I got to lose? Yeah, let's go do it. And at that point, it still didn't quite hit me that this is it. And when I started, and people would come to me and say they found me through Google, I was like, there's no way you're going to find me through Google. I mean, I just started out, my website is crap. And I know I'm not coming up on the first page. I shouldn't be anyway, right? So I knew this is intentional. This is intentionally these people are finding me. This is the right space for me and them to meet. And the more of that happens, and it was a moment in time where I was sitting and it was a meditation and I saw sort of how my life, all those experiences, all those healing that I did for myself, all those modalities that I used for myself, and how now I'm getting to use that for others. And to this day, it's just every time anybody comes and says, hey, I don't know how I found you, or I found you and I kept coming back to your website. I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to be that way. It's meant to be. But it was those two particular times that I knew, yes, this is it.
And your work is so deeply rooted in what I've read that you call awareness-centered transformation, right? And one of your key takeaways for our listeners will be helping them understand the truth of who they are. And this really fascinates me and is so aligned with the work I do, helping women process the act of reclaiming who they were before the world told them who they needed to be. So let's dive into what awareness-centered transformation means and how it's different from other, perhaps more conventional approaches to healing.
We have gotten used to, we're born and then we're somebody's kid, somebody's daughter, somebody's grandkid, somebody's niece or nephew. Then we go through school and then it's what we learn as a career. So there's all these labels and roles that gets tagged on us. And based on those, we develop certain behaviors and patterns because of our environment and what we're going to fit in, to be loved, to be accepted, to feel safe and wanted. And all of those things, put us in these roles. And every time we get into those environments, whether it's at home, at work, with friends, it's sort of we put on that costume and we go in, and it's so unconscious. We have all these emotions because it doesn't feel comfortable, because we're not being true to ourselves and who we are. But once we recognize that love and safety and peace is within us, that brings that awareness that you sort of gets you to step out of those roles a little bit and see it when it comes up in forms of triggers, in forms of, your emotions that come up when you're interacting with someone. So that awareness comes and you sort of become this observer of these roles that you have. And at that point, it's still like people have a hard time. It's like, well, I see it, but I don't know what to do with it, because there's still a part of them that wants to push things away. And the biggest thing that I always say is that once you release the judgment, meaning that you get to see these parts of yourself, these roles, whatever it is, as we're there for a purpose, and you look at them with loving eyes, not fixing eyes, not a problematic and a judgment that I have to clean you. I have to clean you in order to get there. I have to clean you to get better. I have to fix you to get better. You remove that vocabulary and you just say, it's okay. You are okay. And let's just hold the emotion, whether if it's fear, sadness, anger, and without any story there to interact with the emotion, it becomes easier for that emotion to be in that space. And the more you are in that space, it sort of like grows and expands and gets bigger. And that's the transformation, because then you see, I don't need this to be loved and accepted. I don't need this to be a certain way. I can just be me, who I am in every moment. And that's perfect.
Yeah. But then there's the client who's stuck, right? The client that is so attached to their story, maybe because they fear who they will be without it. But what I'm hearing is that this work helps them release the survival patterns, right? The reactive cycles.
Yes.
They can return to clarity and grounded decision making, but understanding that so much of the suffering is rooted really in nervous system dysregulation.
Correct. And that nervous system dysregulation came because things happened. So immediately you go into, as a kid, you're looking at your environment. I need acceptance. I need love. In order for these people, these adults to take care of me, I got to respond to whatever's happening in my immediate. And it doesn't always need to be physical abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse. Abuse is anything that left a marker on you, emotional marker that got you to change, that got you to shift. So in order for that safety, you develop these roles and patterns. That story that I'm calling throughout gets older and older. Now, for those clients that come that are attached to those stories, that's the first thing I do. The first part of the healing, I get them connected to those parts, not in traditional talk therapy way or even inner family system dynamic. It's similar, but not the same, where I have already connected to that part. I feel it, I hear it, and now I get them to connect to it, not from their memory, because when the adult sometimes tries to connect to that kid part, the adult is still talking for them. And a lot of times my clients hear me say, I need you to step out and just tell me, I'm going to ask a question. You're going to pause. You're going to wait to feel or hear or see this response come back to you. And that's that way that they connect. And through that, then I help that part, actually, not the adult, to release and heal. And when that story untangles, then with that, I usually give them homeworks. That's for the nervous system, because that pattern behavior is still going, even though I've taken a biggest chunk of it out. Now I give them homework exercises that it's going to say, hey, every time you're going to go here, I need you to pause and you're going to go this way. You're going to shift. And that helps the whole thing move. And once those stories are not there, they're not getting activated, then it's easier for them to say, my nervous system is not reacting in the same way anymore. And the more they do, then these layers go, and then those survival patterns decrease and decrease and decrease more.
So it's not always about the relationship with the inner child, right? Sometimes it's the parent-child relationship that needs to be revisited.
When I connect to those parts, those kids, revisit that. It's not a child. Sometimes I have to take the kid and they're going to go with the adult version, with the kid version. We're going to go talk to the parent. We're going to go talk to whoever it is. And again, there are different ways I do this, because sometimes it's just one part that needs to go do it. And sometimes it's a bigger part first and then the smaller part. So it all depends on which one we do first.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost reparenting.
It's reparenting. It's more actually about forgiveness, because through that process, then I get them to see something they weren't willing to see before, where even this parent is a construct of their parents and their parents before them. And each parent doesn't come and say, hey, I'm just going to be abusive to my kid, or I'm just going to be this way. They've experienced things and they're doing their best from where they're at, what they're carrying. And a lot of it is out of fear. A lot of time it is out of they want better. A lot of it is that they know they can't do more and they're doing their best.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times my clients have their own kids. And through that, they start seeing, hey, I've done similar things to my kid. Or because I wanted not to be like my parents, I've done this. But this in its own way, it's been, giving my kid something, another sort of form of trauma.
And what does it look like for these clients on the other side of this?
I always say, if I could take a picture of them when they start to when they finish, it's absolutely amazing. I love how their relationship with if they have kids or husbands or wives, how that shifts. Even with their parents, how that shifts, at work, with their friends. And that's the ripple effect that I love about this work, that one person that shifts and changes their energy and they're more grounded, they're more aware, and how they find their peace and they find that self-love, it affects so many other people around them, not just within their family circle, but their friends and coworkers, and they in turn change those guys as well.
Yeah, because the relationship with ourselves is reflected in our relationship to everyone and everything else. That's the ripple effect.
Exactly.
So let's move on to introduce our listeners to another one of your gifts. You're not just a healer and an author, you are a visionary digital artist. So I read that your art begins as photographs of nature and transforms through layering that is really intuitive on your part, right? And you say your art mirrors the layers we release in healing, right? The
Yes.
layers of beliefs, habits, and patterns, right? Revealing the truth beneath. So talk about this intersection of your art and your healing work, please.
I started my art actually as a kid. I loved to be an artist, but that was not something that was encouraged. So I never pursued it. And every time I wanted to touch it, art came with so many rules and restrictions that I was like, no, I don't want to touch it that way. But then when things started to shift and I didn't have my work and my life sort of fell apart, this was the piece that I picked up naturally. And it was interesting. At first, it was like with just acrylics and charcoal and things like that. But messages were coming to me. It was like, I couldn't even say it. It was like, which one's coming, the message or the drawing? And then soon, naturally, it shifted to my photography and digital art. And the way I do my art, it is all pictures of nature or whatever photography work I do. Sometimes it's just one picture that gets, transformed with different colors and drawings. Sometimes it's layers of photography that gets on top of it and I transform it. I add colors and, maybe portions of different things. But it has energy. It has a message related with it. And even that, a lot of them I would hear sort of or see this movement within them that later I was able to do augmented reality, which was through process. Like there's an app that you can look at majority of my artwork and the artwork comes to life. There's music and movement and it changes, shifts.
What did you call that? Augmented
reality art.
Can you describe that for me?
So the augmented reality means like the reality is you see this image and through the app, some of it is on my Instagram and my YouTube, and through the app, you're holding the phone and looking at the artwork, but then suddenly it's like a video starts playing that you see the shapes move and there's music. It just transforms in front of you. So that transformation was another thing that was there before. And then later I found the apps and software that I could do it with.
I'm chuckling to myself because my question was going to be, how does creative expression support transformation? But what I'm feeling right now is that transformation supports creative expression.
In my case, you're right. That's true. It was funny. The latest artwork is called The Invitation. And that literally came about. I put a package out. It was a 6-month package that I called The Invitation. It's a container. I have other people, I call them pillars, that are going to be supportive in this 6-month container. And when I finished, posted it, then I was like, okay, I just want to create this artwork now. And when I sat, and again, it was one of my pictures that I actually took at a resort in California. I was at a meeting and I took this picture of sunlight coming through the trees and I was playing around with it and I came up with the artwork. And when I finished it, I looked at it and it felt like an invitation, like you want to go into this artwork. And I was like, oh, invitation, invitation. And the words that came from that too, it was so aligned with the package and the message of the invitation. And I was like chuckling. There's like, yeah, of course, everything's going to come together.
Yeah, it's all connected, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Great. So let's talk about your book. Change Yourself, Change the World. Love that title. And it's about transforming from fear-based living to choosing love and seeing magic. So for someone right now listening who's living in fear of not being enough, fear of being seen, fear of what others think, fear that's running their decisions and their lives, what do you want them to understand?
It's hard to say right now for them to hear that fear is an illusion. But the work that is going to start is that going inside and finding those places where fear is holding on and reprogramming it to realize I am safe. In this moment, I am safe. And what the fear story is saying, if you say that I am safe and even look at that fear story, you realize that fear story is not happening now. It's taking pieces of the past And it's putting the fear into future of all these things that could maybe happen. But nothing in this moment is proof that that is going to happen or not. Your mind is saying the proof of the past is proof that it's not going to happen. But it's not true. It's a story we've been told, and it's a story we're carrying. So if you can, in those moments where fear is coming, stay just inside and remind yourself, in this moment, I am safe. All is well. And there are also like different body parts that you can hold as you say that. You're basically telling your nervous system, your mind, is used to triggering, is used to alarming. Hey, there's an alarm. Let's move. Let's do something about this. But in that moment, if you can catch it and remind your body, remind the nervous system, there is no need for alarm. In this moment, I am safe. All is well.
Yeah. But that requires a tremendous mindset shift, right? Because for so many, the fear actually feels so much safer because it's so familiar.
True. And that's where we start. I tell people the first step that was for me that I talk about in the book is taking responsibility for my life. Meaning, like, I'm going to close this circle now. I am not going to blame my past. And I'm not going to blame anyone else. And I'm not even going to blame myself. This moment, I'm closing the loop and I'm taking responsibility from now on. This is my life. And when you do that, then you get to say, okay, I'm taking responsibility. So this is all my choices. This is all my doing. And in that, then you start the process of forgiveness and acceptance, which is the biggest things that come. And as you're doing that, then it becomes easier and easier to feel safe because you're basically taking charge back. You're taking control back of your life and not saying it's random, it's not mine.
Yeah, I love that expression, closing the loop. I really do. I very often use the metaphor of turning the page in the book that's your story. But I was listening to an episode on your podcast, and I love the title, Goodbye Bullshit, Hello Happiness. Love it, love it, love it. And you often reference the concept of safety. And in fact, you said something in one of them, and I'm taking it out of context, but it was something about losing the ability to be a blank page.
It's more actually becoming a blank page. I said life alchemist for a reason that I was trying to not to use labels anymore. But you need something that, everybody asks, well, what's your title? What do we call you? So I came up with something that was more fluid than I'm a shaman, I'm a healer. But that's basically it. If I don't hold on to these stories, if I don't hold on to these identities, and I'm just being me in this moment, no matter where I am, you get the same me. Whether you're my friend, whether you're my family, whether you're my client, you're still going to get the same me. There isn't going to be any different. And that's where I'm talking about a blank page. And that's where there is no fear because I'm not holding on to a facade or a costume that I have to maintain for different people at different times. I'm just being me.
I love that. I love that. So before we close, let's make sure that our listeners have your key takeaways clearly. So what are the truths and tools you want them most to carry?
Come back to your body. Your breath, your heartbeat are always going to remind you that life is flowing in the same way. Your body knows what it's doing. You have no control over your breath. You have really no control over your blood flow. Everything is moving naturally. And once you connect with that breath and heartbeat and recognize this body is functioning on its own, that brings a certain amount of peace and relaxation into your body. So that's one of the number one. From there, recognize your mind is always trying to take you either into a story of a past or fear for the future, a regret, something from the past that didn't happen or happened that upset you, whatever the cause was, and fear of what you're not going to have or how things are not going to work out in the future. That's an illusion your mind is creating. It's not in the now. Right here, right now is the only reality. And that's where awareness is, where you can get to be in this now without moving into past or forward and stay there. And that's where awareness tells you that you are safe. All is well.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Sorry, loving yourself. That's another key point.
Big one. That is a big one. And you have so many beautiful offerings, right? You offer one-on-one sessions, you have a new mentorship program, retreats, your book, your art. So for someone who's resonating with this conversation and wants to begin, what would you suggest as a first step? And where can people connect with you in your work?
The first thing I would say, go through my website, spend some time there, look at things and see what feels good. You're going to be called to do something. I always tell my clients, you're not bound to do this session or that session. See at this moment what you're ready for and what feels easy to you. And if it resonates for you, great. Get in touch with me, send me an email through the website, send me a form. And other places, if you just want to hear me talk, I'm on social media everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Recently, I started doing TikTok too. So there's plenty of information I put out there. Listen to it, connect with it, and I hope it helps you.
And we will have all that information in our show notes. Links to your website, links to all of your social platforms, link to your book. So people will have every opportunity to reach out to you. From the bottom of my very deep soul, I want to thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
It's been truly sacred for me. Your presence, your wisdom, your art, your words, your energy, your warmth, all of it is a transmission. And you reminded me and all of us that we are creation in motion. Awareness is already within us, that the journey from fear to freedom, from fear to love is not only possible, but it's our birthright. So to everyone listening, please, please hear this. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not enough. You are a masterpiece. And the work that Atousa offers, whether through her book, her art, her mentorship, or her healing sessions, is an invitation to remember that truth. And if this conversation has touched you, please share it. And check out Atousa's award-winning book, Change Yourself, Change the World. Like I said, we'll have links to Atousa and all of her offerings in the show notes. And please explore her healing work and beautiful art. And as we always say here on Soul Shift, small shifts create big transformations. And sometimes the most powerful shift is simply pausing to remember who you are, who you truly are, beneath all the layers, all the pain, all the noise, all the patterns. You are sacred, you are whole, and you are loved. So until next time, my dear friends, keep shifting your mind, keep igniting your soul, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you for sharing the sacred time today.
We hope something in this conversation touched your heart
And offered nourishment for your soul's journey.
Remember, transformation is most effortless when it happens one tender shift at a time.
Until next week, we invite you to carry one insight from today into your life.
Not as a task.
Think of it as a superpower to yourself.
If something resonated, we'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment below.
Your words ripple outward, offering connection and comfort to others walking this path beside you.
If Soulship feels like home, please subscribe and consider leaving us a review.
Your support will help us reach more hearts that need to hear they're not alone.
We're holding you in love, so know you're not alone. Your journey matters.
May your heart be filled.
And may your path be filled with grace.